Welcome to those of you who are tuning in live from Facebook, and also those of you who are joining us on the Zoom call tonight. We feel really fortunate tonight to be hearing from His Grace Mahatma Prabhu on the topic of self-esteem. So for those of you who don't know, Mahatma Prabhu has been in the Hare Krishna ISKCON movement for over 50 years. He's a disciple of the founder of ISKCON, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and he served the movement in many capacities since then. For those of you who don't know, Prabhu also does a lot of work developing workshops, social media content, online courses, and even books, which are designed to practically show the many ways Krishna consciousness offers solutions to today's challenges. So for a lot of us who are familiar with Prabhu, we feel really inspired by the way he's able to guide us practically in understanding these ancient Vedic texts, which, as you know, is what Project X is all about. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for being with us here tonight. Just a little housekeeping before we start. If you do have any questions at any time during the talk today, please leave them in the chat, or you're very welcome to message myself or any one of the co-hosts, and we will ask your question to Prabhu. So I'll hand it over to you now, Prabhu, so you can begin.
Thank you. I'm just I have some questions here. Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanivari Paschatya Rasatani. I really wish when I was a young devotee, there was somebody my age telling us anything. The senior devotees when I joined were 29 years old. Those were the oldest. And if they had been a devotee 2 to 3 years, we were like in awe and reverence that they had been devotees for such a long time. So I think, a lot of the younger generation thinks, oh, you're so fortunate you had Prabhupada's association, but you're so fortunate because you have the life experience of so many devotees. And I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just reflecting that, it's something you can feel fortunate about. If you feel unfortunate that you weren't with Prabhupada, you can feel fortunate that you have the fortune of being able to hear not only from Prabhupada's disciples, but so many senior devotees. I have some good news for all of you. We are in the process of creating a course on self-esteem. And this course is being developed with a devotee who's a psychologist who has taught self-esteem before she was a devotee. So we're going to make it a kind of a Krishna conscious version using spiritual principles along with the principles that she teaches. So that's something that's in the process. So that's exciting because I want to offer that, a systematic course, to all those who need it. What I think we could accomplish today, one of the things we could accomplish today is understanding how having low self-esteem it can be quite normal, or it can be pathological, but in either way, it does affect our Krishna consciousness, as do many other emotional or psychological dysfunctions or difficulties or illnesses. So I think it's important to understand that. And when you understand that and start to see how it is affecting you, it can become a bit of an impetus to do something about it. Because when you see the connection, say, this is harming my Krishna consciousness. So I want to discuss that a little bit. I want to define what it is. I want to discuss why it's affecting so many people. And then we'll have some questions, and there's some questions here of how to guide this discussion. But first I wanted to talk about low self-esteem as kind of a natural problem that's occurring in today's society because of the pressure to be materially successful, the pressure to be beautiful, the pressure to impress other people with your labels on your clothes, the label on the car you drive, etc., etc. This has become much more, I think, of a problem than ever, at least in my lifetime. And It's a problem in many ways. It's an ecological problem, for sure, but it becomes a psychological problem because it causes people to evaluate their self-worth by externals. And this can also be within the Hare Krishna movement. You know, what have you accomplished? What is your position? Are you initiated, not initiated? You know, there'd be so many external factors that then translate into considering your self-worth. So we're stuck in this paradigm in today's society, and it's not like ISKCON promotes it, but we come into ISKCON and we have a need to be acknowledged and recognized, and so sometimes we gravitate towards services or positions where we'll get recognition, not even conscious of what we're doing. So I think it's natural. We want to be accepted, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be appreciated. So low self-esteem is not in and of itself a problem. It becomes a problem when it becomes very severe. Like, my understanding of psychology is basically we're all mentally ill, but it's just slight, so it's not considered a mental illness. Like we all, if you diagnose mental illness, we all have a lot of those diseases, but it's just slight, so it's just normal. Do you get jealous? Yes. Do you sometimes feel inadequate or embarrassed because you said something stupid? Of course, we all do. That's natural. But when it becomes too excessive, then it starts to become a problem. And I want to discuss the problems that it creates, because when you see the problems it creates, then you may realize it's more of a problem than I thought. So, what is low self-esteem? Low self-esteem is actually the opposite of arrogance. So I guess you could say, well, if I have a choice between arrogance and low self-esteem, maybe I should choose low self-esteem. Not that you have a choice, but arrogance is the opposite end of low self-esteem. Low self-esteem means you underestimate who you are. You think you're less intelligent, less capable, less attractive, less anything than actually other people perceive you as. It's a perception of yourself as somewhat inadequate. And that perception is not shared in general by others. It's not objectifiable, it's not actually true, but it's a subjective perception of yourself. I have seen very intelligent people who think they're not intelligent. I have seen very attractive people who think they're not attractive. So low self-esteem is kind of like it's a dissonance with reality, that you start to see yourself as something different from what you are. The problem is we tend to act according to our perception of ourselves. So if you're very intelligent, but for some reason you think you're not, it will minimize to some degree your ability to use your intelligence, because you'll think, well, I'm not that intelligent, I can't figure this out. When in fact you could figure it out. Sometimes you see the opposite. Someone not that intelligent thinks, well, I'm intelligent, I can figure it out, and they do. Have you seen that? And the more intelligent person says, I'm too stupid to figure this out. So that's a simple definition of low self-esteem. Where it gets a little more serious is the feeling that I'm not lovable, or it comes in the form of also I'm not worthy of good things happening to me. That is a deeper, we could call it a samskar. It's a deeper impression, and then when you're in that level, it starts having more pathological consequences. It can go up to the point, when it gets really bad, that God doesn't love me, and then when it gets extremely bad, it goes to the point of what's the use of living, because my life has no value. So that's pre-suicide. Suicide is the point where you think nobody in the world will care if I'm alive or not. And that's the danger of low self-esteem on the material level. If it becomes a disease and excessive, it could lead to those thoughts. What's the use of living? And I know people like that who feel that way every day, and they just say, I'm too chicken to kill myself, but that's how I feel. And most of you I'm looking at, or many of you, are women, and most women who become suicidal don't do it. Guys do it more often because that's the male nature, they'll just do it. So that's one of the areas it becomes dangerous. And even if it doesn't go to the level of suicide, if I think that my life is of no value and that even Krishna doesn't care about me, you can understand that your life will be pretty dysfunctional and depressing, right? And again, I want to go back to the point that there's no valid reason to objectify any of that. It's just how we subjectively see ourselves. Okay, so does that all make sense so far? Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. So here's another problem, and I think these are all, I can't say for sure because I haven't studied it, but from what I can tell, these are more modern problems. There's a word, you've heard the word affluenza? You ever heard that? I think there was a book about it, these are, oh yeah, I don't know where I was, but a mother was with a child, and something happened, and the mother said, somebody was frustrated because they were all sold out of something, and the woman got really upset, and the little kid was saying, why is she so upset? And the mother said, oh, these are rich people problems. They couldn't get the 400-pound Nikes because they were sold out, and they're, really upset. Oh, and she said, oh, these are rich people problems. So there's a lot of problems that are affecting society because of the opulence that we're, and the lifestyle we live. So here's another one. And there was a question here about I should cover the topic of self-love, and it's self-judgment. So here's where it gets tricky in spiritual life. Because in spiritual life, you're supposed to be aware of your faults, right? And I heard a joke the other day. Self-awareness is not always fun. Self-awareness, it sounds like, warm and fuzzy, right? We should all be self-aware. But the fact is that self-awareness is not always fun, is it? Because when you become aware of yourself, it's could be a nightmare, right? So I want to talk about that, because it's not really a nightmare, it's only a nightmare based on how you view it. So I look at myself and I see I am like this, and it would be better if I was like that, right? Okay, so let me work on being more like that, no problem. Where does the problem come in? The problem comes in with self-judgment. I'm like this, therefore I'm bad. As opposed to, I'm like this, let's work on being like that. I stop with, I'm like this, therefore I'm bad. It's a self-judgment. That's where you run into problems, right? And where it hits the deepest problem is when I am like this becomes my core identity. So bad then becomes my core identity. And that's where it becomes a serious dysfunction. So let's say I say, Vrinda, let's say, Vrinda, you sent me something, right? And there were some typos in it. And I said, well, thank you for doing that. There were a few typos. Could you correct them? And then I send it back to you, and then you might feel like, oh, I'm such a failure. There were typos. There's always typos in everything, That's why we have proofreaders, But Vrinda, you might be thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me. There's typos. I'm so bad. So we start identifying imperfect behavior as a core identity that there's something wrong with us. That's when the problem starts to become serious, right? Or, Vrinda, you go to work or school and someone says something to you then the connotation is you're not as smart as someone else. Okay, the other person you're not as smart as happens to have an IQ of like 195. So it's understandable. But you kind of take it like, oh, yeah, I'm stupid. That means I'm stupid. The way we take things has a huge effect on us, and then we process them, and we can process them in a way that starts to become a core identity, like stupid is my core identity. When the person just said, you're not as smart as that other person, and then it gets interpreted in all these strange ways that starts having negative effects on us. Do you realize, I don't know if you realize this, but do you realize that one thing somebody can tell you can completely mess up your life for the rest of your life if you don't deal with it? If I say, Unky, I think you're really stupid, and you have so much respect for me that you take it seriously, that could actually alter your view of yourself permanently for the rest of your life. It's possible. And the fact is, we have all heard these things growing up, and some of those had a bigger effect on us than others. And you may not realize it. But a lot of that low self-esteem can be a product of a friend just innocently saying something, how could you do that? That was so stupid. And that becomes translated as, I am stupid. At the core, I'm a stupid human being. Now, that's more subtle. But these are things you could meditate on. What happens from that is when it starts to become a core identity, it forms a belief. And then you act according to that belief. As I'm less a person because I'm stupid, or I'm whatever it is. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not slim enough. I'm not, whatever enough. Yeah, well, just go back to Godhead. You'll be enough. In this world, you'll always not be enough of something. It doesn't matter. Now, it only matters if you make it matter, right? Yes? Who decides whether it matters or not? You decide. Well, why would you want to make a decision that works against you? It doesn't make any sense. And we do it all the time, isn't it? You look in the mirror and you're like, a half a kg too fat. And you walk around, I'm so fat. I hate myself. I can't look in the mirror anymore. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Or vice versa. I'm too thin. I'm a half a kg too thin. Everybody calls me, whatever they call me, skinny or whatever. So your interpretation of that is where the problem comes from. It's not what you are that's the problem. It's how you interpret it, right? I want to tell you my story. I'm very fortunate. I have a very independent nature, and in growing up, I didn't listen to anybody. And I realized that this protected me because I don't even know if anybody said I was smart or stupid or good or bad at anything because I never listened. I never cared what people thought. It's nothing I developed. It's just who I am. So my parents could have said, you're a useless bum. My mother used to joke with me, you're good for nothing, because I was, just a lazy teenager. You're good for nothing. Why don't you do something? And I just leave me alone, right? But I could have taken it seriously, think, she's right, I'm a good for nothing. I'm a useless person. I'll never become anything. I could have interpreted it that way. And there are kids who do interpret it that way. Their parents are just saying, trying to inspire them to become something. You got B's, but I know you're more intelligent than that. You could get A's. And then the interpretation is, something's wrong with me because I didn't get an A. That's not what they meant. That was your interpretation. But my point is, why would you want to do that to yourself, to create interpretations that will drive yourself crazy? That's a question for you to meditate on, because I just want to share this point with you that nobody is causing your low self-esteem. You're causing it by your interpretation. The world isn't doing it to you. Your friends aren't doing it to you. Your parents aren't doing it to you. Ultimately, you're doing it to yourself. So that's an important point to understand. And the next question is, why would you do that to yourself? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to create anxiety for yourself, right? Okay, I'm not, maybe it's true. I don't have a high IQ. But does that mean you're not good at something else that you could utilize in your occupation, in your service, whatever? Of course, everybody's good for something. Everybody's useful for something. And if you're not good at anything, you're good serving people that are good at something. It's not like, does it matter? That's my karma. Okay, my karma in this life is I serve people who will do wonderful things and I'll never become famous. Okay, maybe that's my karma. All right, can I accept that? Is that okay? I was in, where was I? Mexico. Taking a walk. I go to Mexico a lot. And so, in Mexico, they clean the street, right? They still do this, Lakshmi Priya, in Monterey, with the big brooms. They still do it. The street, like in America, probably in London, you have trucks that just, we had those when I was a kid, we had them, like 50 years ago. In Mexico, more, I guess, employs more people and whatever. So they sweep. And so we go for a walk every morning in this big park in Mexico City. It's right by the temple. And we always meet these guys sweeping. And these people are actually happy. It's amazing. If you talk to them and you see them, they're actually happy and they're singing and they're sweeping the floor. And I'm thinking, if these people were in America, they would not be happy. They would be cursing every American. Oh, look what you've done to me. I ended up as a street sweeper. This is horrible. I don't know why Mexican street sweepers are happy. I really don't. Maybe they make a lot of money. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like exercise outdoors. Maybe it's Mexican culture. But you understand what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense. That Mexican is not supposed to be happy. There's something wrong with him. He shouldn't be happy, right? He should be miserable. He should think, I'm a total failure. Look what I'm doing with my life. I'm simply sweeping streets, right? And he's happy. What is it? It's an interpretation. He doesn't feel like I'm worthless because I'm sweeping streets. It's like, I got a job. This is fantastic. And I'm not that smart, but I'm smart enough to sweep a street. And I got a house, a roof over my head, and I've got beans and rice on my plate. I'm good, right? And tortillas. Beans, rice, and tortillas. I'm good. Right? And so if you study the world, you will see that what people have and what they do doesn't always correspond to their happiness. It's their interpretation of it. Isn't it? Right? So, now, there is one situation which can likely cause a pathological effect, unless you're like me and don't care what everybody says about you. And that's if you were raised by parents who kept telling you, you're useless, you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything. Or worse, and I know people like this, whose parents told them, you were an accident and we didn't want you, and you were just a burden on us. Could you imagine being told that growing up? We didn't want you, you were an accident, and you're a burden on us. If you're in a situation like that, for sure you will need help, professional help. It will be rare that you're not affected by that. Maybe if it was me, I would also be affected. I imagine I would be. But if you're that person, like, who cares what you think about me? I am who I am. I'm my own person. I'll be who I am. Okay, you won't be affected. But if you're in an environment where you're constantly put down, it can become a very, very severe form of low self-esteem, and you would need professional help. Because what happens in that situation, at the very core of your being, is ingrained the belief that your life is of no value. You're actually worthless. So low self-esteem has a little scent of that. But when it becomes a serious disease, then it's like on the deepest level of your psyche, that's how you feel and that's how you function. So it doesn't mean that you have to be raised that way to descend to that level. The way you process your life could cause you to descend to that level. And so I want to talk a little bit about how it manifests and what we can do to work around it. I'll ask you a question. When you show up somewhere, what do you want people to think about you? What do you want them to believe about you? Like, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm funny, I'm talented. Like, what do you want people to believe about you? We all, have some, this is a difficult question. We have to be honest. I'm not going to ask you. This is for you to think. Okay, I'll use an example, right? I want people to think I'm intelligent. Okay. Then the next question is, who specifically is it important for you to convince that you are intelligent? And there's probably somebody, or whatever it is you want to convince them. There's probably somebody, right? Who? Who is that somebody? You're like, oh my God, you got me pinned in a corner. I'm trying to impress so-and-so. Okay, so we use my example of I don't feel intelligent. Right? And I'm trying to impress so-and-so. Why would I try to impress so-and-so? Because he's super intelligent. That's why. I'm not trying to impress, people that dropped out of high school. I'm trying to impress intelligent people, right? Obviously. Because those intelligent people make me feel even less intelligent, isn't it? You ever felt stupid around really smart people? Okay, so I want to impress people that I'm intelligent. Why? Because I don't feel that I'm intelligent. I doubt my intelligence. Does it mean I'm not intelligent? No, it doesn't mean I'm not intelligent. It only means I doubt my intelligence. It has nothing to do with whether I'm intelligent or not. And that's why whenever I'm trying to impress people with something, it's usually something I'm not certain that I possess. And I need to impress people that I have it. And that thing that you want to impress people, wouldn't it be great if they told you, hey, Radha, you are so smart? And then you would be like, wow, he made my day. Why? Why? Because when you have low self-esteem, you can't get it from yourself. You can't tell yourself, I'm smart. You need other people to tell you, to believe it. You don't believe yourself. That's the problem. You start depending on other people to give you what you should be giving yourself. You start depending on other people to value yourself because you don't value yourself, right? So if I say, Radha, you are so intelligent, you're like, wow, I feel really good today because I don't think I'm intelligent, right? And that's a sign of low self-esteem. You start depending on other people to build you up rather than acknowledging that you are who you are. Now, let's say hypothetically, Radha, you're actually not intelligent. You fell over when you were a kid and you hurt your brain, and but does that really matter? Well, it only matters if you think it matters, right? Like, okay, we're all endowed with a different IQ, right? Some have a higher IQ, some have lower IQ. In the long run, does it really matter? Well, maybe I'm not going to get a job as a, astrophysicist or something. But aside from that, it only matters to the degree that you make it matter. It's like, Radha, can you be not brilliant and be okay with yourself? Yeah. Could you be brilliant and not okay with yourself? Yeah. Because you're not as brilliant as Albert Einstein, so you're depressed. It's possible, right? Let's say Radha has a super high IQ, like 150. But she's like, Albert Einstein had 185, so I feel stupid next to him. And everyone's saying, Radha, you are so brilliant. No, I'm not, I'm not that smart. Albert Einstein had 185 or whatever. I only have 150. We'd look at you and think, are you crazy? So it doesn't have to be based on reality. It's only based on your interpretation, right? What is success for you? Well, how do you define it, right? In our society, it's defined success for us. And even if you ask yourself, what's success as a devotee, or what's success in ISKCON, your definition may not be the definition in the scripture. It may not be Prabhupada's definition. It may be really filtered through material values or social values or expectations that you believe others have of you. So I feel it's really important to understand what is Krishna's and Prabhupada's definition of value, of self-esteem, self-worth, self-love, and so forth. Like I might say, well, Ambika, you should love yourself. And Ambika might say, how can I love myself? I only have an IQ of 140. I'm like, my God, that's more than I have. No, it's not enough. My father was a physicist, and he was like the head of the department of whatever, and at Oxford, and compared to him, you feel like nothing, right? So that's what we're dealing with, but that's not what Krishna's dealing with. That's not what Prabhupada's dealing with. So I was thinking before class, I was thinking of the verse Patra Pushpam Pilam Toyam. Offer me a leaf, fruit, flower, and water, right? How to offer it? With bhakti, with love. If you add love, if you sprinkle love on it, I'll eat it, right? So if you look at Krishna's Leela, what impresses Krishna the most? How well the gopis dance and sing? That's okay, but that's not the real thing, right? How well the cowherd boys fight or play ball with their bell fruits. That might be okay, but that's not the real thing, What does Krishna care about? And what does any friend care about? What does any lover care about? Affection, isn't it? So when Krishna, it's so funny to think Krishna would judge us because, Krishna's so good at everything. We'd never be good enough for him, right? Right? So Krishna doesn't look at you and say, Shyam or Sundar, nah, not you. I don't like the way you comb your hair, so forget you. We do that, and we start to think like Krishna's like that. He's not like that. He doesn't see us that way. 18. If you need some boost of your self-esteem, read 1864. In 1864, Krishna says, Arjuna, I'm like, I just want the best for you because I love you. And you want me to tell you the whole Bhagavad Gita over again? I'll do it. Why? Because I love you so much. You're so dear to me. That's not just Arjuna, that's all of us, right? So I think the most healthy thing we can do is look at ourselves like Krishna looks at us. Like, why don't you see yourself like Krishna looks at us? Now, here's another thing. I was in San Francisco in August of 1970, wearing a polyester saffron dhoti. There's no wrinkles in them, and they shine, and they never fade. And every devotee in the temple was wearing a polyester dhoti. And we used to wear tops like the sannyasis wear. So we had these beautiful, shiny dhoti, and we were all shaved up with sikas. Everyone, in the temple. There was no room in the temple. We filled it up with brahmacharis. I don't know if there were any women could even fit in the temple. There were very few women in the temple then. So there had to be like 100 brahmacharis or so, packed like wall to wall. And Prabhupada came to the door, and he was so happy. Because you could imagine, this was still very early in the movement. There were only I would say, living in the temple, my estimate is maybe 350 devotees. And about 150 of them were in that temple, or let's say 100. Let's say a quarter of the movement was in that temple at that point. It was like the quarter of the total population of ISKCON was in that temple, and they were newly shaven with tilak and all brahmacharis. And Prabhupada looks at that, and he's just relishing it, right? Looking at that, thinking, This is amazing, right? Now, he could have looked at them and said, nah, losers, forget it, get out of here. This movement's not gonna work, you're all losers. He could have said that, right? Which is kind of how many of us might have felt about ourselves, right? Yeah, I'm just a loser, somehow I ended up in the temple, but it's just mercy. But I'll probably never be a pure devotee. You ever think like that? Oh, I'll never be a pure devotee. I'll never really. Well, why would Krishna care about me anyway? It's like, he's got so many friends. He's got so many gopis, and I'm just an ordinary person wallowing away in material life. Why would he care about me? You ever think like that? Why would Krishna ever care about me? And amazingly, Krishna does, which is so nice. And amazingly, Prabhupada did. And amazingly, Prabhupada encouraged us and had faith in us. And so, what I want to share with you is, Prabhupada never, ever, ever made us feel like there was something wrong with us. And there was so much wrong with us. At least from the position, if you compare us to brahmacharis and to Gaudiya Math, there was a lot wrong with us, a lot. And we might have felt there was something wrong with us, but it wasn't because Prabhupada made us feel that way. Prabhupada made us feel quite the opposite, like we can become Krishna conscious despite whatever. You've got your whole life ahead of you. You can do this. So, I was asked to speak about self-love. Self-love is really the cure, or self-compassion is the cure for low self-esteem. Self-love or self-compassion means to accept myself, accept my karma, accept whatever I am as it's okay, this is how I am. You might say, yeah, but I'm not okay. Well, who decides whether you're okay or not? Again, you do, right? Now, from Krishna's point of view, you're okay. You can be more okay. From Prabhupada's point of view, you're okay. You can be more okay. But Prabhupada never made us feel unloved, uncared for. In fact, quite the opposite. He made us feel extremely cared for, extremely valuable, extremely loved. I'll give you an example. Prabhupada used to tell us over and over again that you should perfect your Krishna consciousness in this life, right? Now, if you translate that into the terms of self-care and self-love, which are not terms used often in Krishna consciousness, they sound more like Buddhist terms or psychological terms, and sometimes when you use those terms, some devotees like, where's that in the Shastra? And I never heard Prabhupada say that. But think about it. Prabhupada is telling us over and over and over again, take advantage of this opportunity and dedicate your life and go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Isn't that self-care on steroids? Take care of yourself so you will go back to Godhead. And I was in a class, and Prabhupada said, you do not want to come back in another lifetime. This is going to be so bad, and you can do it in this one lifetime. So that's all about caring for yourself. Take care of yourself. And then Prabhupada said, if you don't, you're actually envious of yourself. And envy in Sanskrit sometimes means hatred. Because we think, how could you be envious of yourself? Because you're envious of someone who has what you don't want. So at first thought, that doesn't make sense. But when you understand, the word envy is also dvesha, which is sometimes used to mean hatred. So self-envy means self-hatred. And what does self-hatred mean? It means I'm doing something that's not in my own self-interest, right? So at one point in my devotional career, I started meditating on this concept of self-hatred. And I realized that anytime I do something which isn't good for myself, there's some manifestation of self-hatred. And I would ask myself, why are you doing this? Why do you hate yourself? What's wrong with you? Where did that come from? Get rid of that. Get it out of there. I don't know where it came from. Yeah. Fortunately, it wasn't strong, but I realized if I'm going to make a choice, and that choice is not in my best interest, there's some kind of self-hatred conditioned there within me, and I really need to work on that. And so the way I worked on it was through self-acceptance. It's like, obviously, there's people in a better position than I'm in, people who are more capable, more intelligent, more whatever. But that's okay. I'm okay, they're okay, everything's okay. You don't have to make it not okay, because when you make it not okay, you drive yourself insane. Yes? You agree? Yeah. So, self-compassion means to treat yourself in a way that is beneficial for you. Like when you exercise, that's an act of self-compassion. Because it's a lot easier to just sit on the couch, eat potatoes, and watch YouTube, isn't it? It takes very little effort, and it's like no pain, right? And then you say, okay, I'm getting up off the couch, I'm going to go out and exercise. And you start exercising, oh, this is so hard, oh, it's so austere. But you do it because you're taking compassion on yourself. You're taking care of yourself. You're doing something which is good for yourself, right? So we extend that. Exercise is you eat right. You could eat this, but you say, no, I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to eat this because this is good for me. That's self-compassion. You extend that to so many of your activities, and especially what we're talking about, that extend that to your thoughts. If I'm not going to eat this ice cream tonight because it's bad for me, why am I going to eat this thought that there's something wrong with me, that I'm less this, less that, I need to be more this? Why am I going to beat myself up with a thought? So self-care means I won't allow myself to have those thoughts, but I'll have thoughts which are more kind and compassionate. What's a kind thought? Okay, I'm like this, but I'm okay. I'm still a good person. I'm a decent human being. I'm trying to be a good devotee. That's a more compassionate thought, isn't it? And one of the ways you can kind of, let's say, phrase your thinking is, imagine if the way you were dealing with yourself was the way you were dealing with somebody else. Then you would realize, wow, that's not very nice. Think of the things you say to yourself and imagine saying them to another person, and imagine them saying that to a 5-year-old kid. You might be arrested by the police for saying those things, right? You're so stupid, you'll never become anything, you're useless, why even try? And you're saying that to a 5-year-old kid, and people are saying, you can't say that to that kid, you're destroying his life, right? And now we're saying that to ourselves. Isn't that amazing, right? So self-compassion, just like you eat a healthy food, you eat healthy thoughts. You say things, you think things which are healthy because you're preserving yourself, you're caring for yourself. So this is an interesting thing to ask ourselves, why would I do something if it's not good for me? Why would I allow myself to say these things? Okay, there is a reason. There are many reasons. And one of them is because those things have been said to you a lot. And now they're in your tape recorder. And so you just hit the play button and it's going, you're not this, you're not that, you should be more this, you should be more that. Because you've heard it grossly or subtly. It's all over the media and advertising, right? When you look at clothes, who's wearing the clothes? Someone way more beautiful or handsome than you. That makes you feel like, hey, there's something wrong with me, right? That guy wearing that sweater, he's got bigger muscles than I do, right? He's got a nicer beard and a nicer tattoo than I do. That means something's wrong with me. That girl modeling, she's got a better figure than I do. No, she doesn't. That was Photoshop. But anyway, She's got a better figure. You know, models say things like, I wish I looked as good as I look I wish I looked in real life like I looked on the cover of that magazine, because I don't, right? So we are being told, isn't it a fact? We're being told something's wrong with us every time you look at the picture of a model, isn't it? Or every time you go to Britain Has Talent or whatever, and you hear the 16-year-old singing a song like, oh my God, did they descend from Gandharva Loka? And, you know, and then you feel like, I'm never going to sing again. You know, you know. Or you see that video of that 13-year-old, like, Indian genius kid who's, you know, who's pontificating on all kinds of social and political problems. You can't even understand what he's saying, and he's like 13 years old, and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm so stupid. It's being programmed in there. It's not like people have to tell you that. It's just coming. But it's all about how you process it. And if you process it with self-love, then you're okay. Then you're like, oh, this is how I am, you know? Maybe I can't sing, but I can dance. I'm a really good dancer. So, you know, what am I supposed to do? Kill myself over the fact I can't sing? No, just dance. Doesn't matter. Just dance your heart out, right? Or maybe I'm not good in English, but I'm good in math. Okay, well, don't write any novels, you know, go solve some problem, mathematical problems. So this is how we get ourselves in trouble. We're allowing all these things to influence us. They're coming in, they're programmed in there, and we often don't realize it and we don't do anything about it. So what I wanted to do in this lecture is just to make you realize your programming. And start to see it, and start to compassionately deal with it and reprogram it to the point like, I'm okay as I am. And of course I can be better, but don't make judgments on it, because when you make judgments on it, you'll destroy yourself. That's where you destroy yourself, on your judgments. Does that make sense? And the last point, and then we'll take questions, it was a point I made earlier. If you're in a situation where you default to extreme areas of low self-esteem, where, like, if people don't praise you, you end up hating them because you're so needy of being praised, or people don't tell you you're doing a good job, but they try to give you instruction, and you're like, don't tell me, I'll do it. These are all signs of your self-esteem has hit a level where it's critical, where it's causing problems in relationships. You ever see that? You ever tell somebody, you know, I think you could do it this way, and they run off and slam the door and start crying? That is low self-esteem at a serious pathological level. So that's where it gets dangerous, where we can't function normally, and we have all these expectations for people to act in certain ways and not act in other ways, and we're going to have all kinds of problems with people. We'll have all kinds of problems in relationships. So when it gets to that level, then you need professional help. If it gets to that level that I just feel totally unworthy, there's no reason to do anything and so forth, then that's where it's a problem. And that should seriously be dealt with. These other ones, I think you can work yourself around slowly, and you can read books on the topic. Sometimes you can do reprogramming through hypnotism. If you have really deep samskaras, I'm worthy, I'm useless, it can be reprogrammed to I'm of value, I'm lovable, I am worthy. So these are things to consider. This is only an hour, so we can only kind of scrape the surface, but it's I just wanted to give you something to think about. And now we'll go to questions. How do we want to do the questions?
So I have a number of questions, Prabhu, which have been sent to me anonymously.
Okay.
If I can read them out to you if you'd like. The first question I have that's sent to me says, when people newly take up Krishna consciousness, we notice that people think being humble means to act a certain way, such as saying, please accept my humble obeisances, or acting timid instead of actually humble. How do we best understand the difference between this and developing real humility?
Humility is a realization that whatever good you find in me is a gift from Krishna, and I'm totally aware of that. I'm totally aware of my defects. I don't try to hide them from myself or others. And I'm totally dependent on Krishna in everything I do. That's the basic definition of humility. And unfortunately, and I know this sounds funny, and I don't mean it to be funny, but it is funny. Unfortunately, sometimes we use humility, maybe unconsciously, as a means to get recognition, as a humble devotee. Or it means to get recognition as a proper devotee. Like what you're saying, what they're saying is like, if in the Sangha I behave humbly, people will think, oh, you're a good devotee, or you're a nice person or something. So I'm using that to get recognition because, again, I'm not giving that recognition to myself. I'm judging myself as a bad person. I need to get the recognition of others, so I behave in a way to get their recognition. And sometimes we do that with our spiritual masters. We want to get the recognition. And what if we don't get it? Then, no, I've got to get a new spiritual master who gives more recognition, So, these things are subtle, but we need to be aware of them because they definitely get in the way. Did that answer the question, or you want more?
They messaged and said that did answer the question, and thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah.
The next question we have says, how can we stop putting people on a pedestal / why do we do this?
Stop putting people on a pedestal?
Yeah.
And why there could be many reasons why we do it. I would ask the person who asked, why do they think they're doing it? And then we can discuss how to not do it. Because it could come from low self-esteem also, because we don't recognize ourselves. And we recognize everyone else is great except ourselves. And it actually, like sometimes here's a pathology, you have low self-esteem, you'll do things to lower your self-esteem because it's your comfort zone. And so sometimes putting people on a pedestal can do that. It can knock you down more. Because if you feel bad, unworthy, you'll knock yourself down more, because that makes you feel good to knock yourself down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like when people have a problem with self-forgiveness, the reason they can't forgive themselves is they don't think they're worthy of self-forgiveness. Is they think that, they feel guilty to forgive themselves. So it's just like this vicious cycle. So that could be a reason. Almost like you want to make someone better to make yourself feel worse, because that's where you feel most comfortable, feeling worse, because you're so used to feeling bad about yourself that it's become a pathological comfort zone. That could be one reason. But did he give another reason, or she?
No, that was just their question, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what you said probably about reflecting on why we put people on a pedestal, I think that was a really great point to make in terms of that.
You can all do that. There could be good reasons also, not bad reasons, because you want to be like that person, and if you serve a person, you become like them. So it could be good reasons also.
Definitely. Thank you, Prabhu. The next question says, if I need to learn new skills for work or other projects, and this is affecting my self-esteem because it's difficult, how can I go about doing this knowing it needs to be done?
Yeah, here's the mantra. Every master was first a disaster. You see, the thing is, that's why reading biographies are good, because you just see the end result. Okay, here's Steve Jobs, or here's whoever, right? But then you read the story, you go, he failed so many times, and You know this book, Chicken Soup of the Soul? Bad title, but it was rejected by 130 publishers. Somehow or other, you know, he had faith it was a good book. And it was one of the biggest selling books ever. So, do you know that it takes, on the average, 3 years for a business to become successful? And most people give up because they don't know it takes 3 years. And they go, oh, I'm a failure, you know, I can't develop this business. 6 months and nothing. No, it takes 3 years to really get it going. So it's good to understand that successful people had to start somewhere and learn and make all kinds of mistakes. In fact, I've heard people say, you should make as many mistakes as you can as quickly as possible. Because that's how you learn. You learn by making mistakes. So, I lost track of what I was saying. Anyway, what was the question?
It was about learning new skills and
Yeah. Okay.
how it affects your self-esteem.
Yeah. And also, we've all been endowed with a certain degree of ability and intelligence, and so we're all going to be better or worse at certain things. But the point we want to understand is, don't equate your material abilities to your core sense of who you are and your core sense of who you are in Krishna's eyes as a being worthy of his love and his service, and worthy of the love and friendship of your friends, family, and so forth. That's where you get totally messed up. And that's where we have the problem. So, okay, you're learning something you're not good at. My daughter took a statistics class. It was hell on steroids for her, for sure. She was going crazy. Goes, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. So we got a tutor. She was like, okay, I can't do this without a tutor. And then she goes to take the exam. I go, how did you do? And he goes, I have no idea. Blah, blah. She got a 99 on the exam. So it's like that, You think you're something, and you beat yourself up about it, and look at, Did that ever happen to you? Like you're like depressed for days. It's like, I must have failed my test, or or someone says, I have a letter I'm sending you in 3 days, and you're like, oh, they're going to fire me and this and that. And you open the letter and you've just been promoted for your work, So, but the point is, even if they fire you, do you have to say, there's something wrong with me because I was fired? Can you say, okay, this company is really unfortunate that they fired me. I'm just going to work for another company and make them fortunate. Could you say that humbly? You could, right? So, I have a friend, some of you may know him, his name is Havidas. And years ago, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, he moved to Alachua, and then a few years ago, he moved like very close to me. And then we worked together on doing a new Brahma Samhita, a new version of Brahma Samhita. And so I was kind of engineering and he was playing, and I was watching him, how he's doing it. And he would say, okay, give me an instrument, and we'd find the right instrument. And he goes, okay, start recording. I go, well, you don't want to practice playing something? Because that's what I would do. He goes, no, I hear it in my head. I'll just play it. I'm like, okay. So I'm watching him do it, and in comparison to him, I'm like, as a musician, it's like, I have to go in my bedroom and cry, So what does that mean? Okay, I'm making a public announcement. I'm never singing again. I'm not doing kirtan again. It's just like, I can't, it doesn't make any sense, right? Can I, sing for Krishna and play for Krishna even though I can't play like that? Of course I can. So why not celebrate, whatever you have and can do? And do it in devotion. That's what matters, right? Okay, we have 2 minutes. Then I have to run. Yeah.
Prabhu, I think we will let you go. We have a lot of questions left, but I'm hoping that we might be able to get you back one day, and we could probably do a question and answer session instead.
Okay. You
But
can
yeah,
also send those questions to Jai Radhe, and I can give voice note answers.
perfect.
We can do both, but as a intermediate step,
Yeah.
because usually what happens is talks like this just kind of open things up, you know. And like, oh, okay. So it's good. Yeah, I think we should do a second session. That would be good to, you know.
Yeah, definitely
Open.
lots of people in the chat are already requesting for a second session as well.
Yeah,
So
because you need more time. And also, if Jai Radhe is here, yeah, if you could find Jai Radhe where, see, I have SoundCloud, and I gave a whole series of lectures on low self-esteem. It's on my SoundCloud, so Mahatma Das SoundCloud, and then I forget the title, maybe called Self-Compassion, Self-Envy, something like that. Okay, I'm going to go to the next.
perfect. Thank you so much,
Zoom.
Prabhu. We really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
your time. And thank you so much. Hopefully we can have you back as soon as we
Yeah,
can.
my pleasure. Hare Krishna. Nice to
Um,
see you all.
It's lovely to see you too. Just before everybody heads off tonight, I'd also really like to say a big thank you to all of you who joined today and for your really amazing questions. I'm really sorry that we weren't able to get through all of them. But like I said, fingers crossed that we can get Mahatma Prabhu back again. If you do want to access any more of Mahatma Prabhu's content, please see the links in our chat box. I think we have a link to a SoundCloud on there, and also his Instagram, because he makes regular content on there, which I know, at least for me, is quite inspiring in my day-to-day life. And it's some really good daily meditations as well. I have a number of events to announce which are coming up. So this is our March schedule. So the 6th of March, tomorrow night,